In today's world, something subtle yet profound is happening right before our eyes. But most people haven't noticed it. Spiritually awake individuals are quietly disappearing from mainstream society. They're not losing interest in life, and they're not retreating out of weakness. No, what they're doing is far more intentional and far more mysterious, like the mystic sages and visionaries who came before them. These people are stepping away from a system they see as out of sync with the deeper truths of existence. They are choosing silence over noise, clarity over confusion, and purpose over performance. Their withdrawal isn't passive. It's a conscious act, a refusal to participate in a world that often feels spiritually hollow, artificially connected, and filled with endless distractions that numb the soul. Carl Jung, the great depth psychologist, spoke about individuation, the journey of becoming your truest self by integrating both the conscious and unconscious parts of your psyche. And here's where it gets interesting. Jung believed awakening wasn't about escaping life, but about becoming whole. Yet in a culture obsessed with surface-level identities, consumerism, and the chase for external validation, such inner work becomes almost radical. Think about it. When you start waking up, conversations can suddenly feel shallow. Work may feel empty. Even relationships can become strained when values no longer align. Spiritually awake, people begin to see life not just as it appears, but as it truly is. And with that clarity comes something few talk about, a deep, sometimes painful sense of alienation. Now, don't get me wrong. These individuals aren't necessarily religious, and most don't fit neatly into organized belief systems. Their spirituality is raw, personal, and often forged through suffering introspection or breathtaking moments of awe. They're the ones who ask the uncomfortable questions, who search for truth beneath the noise, who value authenticity over popularity, and yet their voices are fading. They aren't trying to fit in anymore. They're not chasing likes, building followings, or crafting an identity for show. Instead, they're quietly moving inward, living more simply, more intentionally, and in many ways, more meaningfully. But here's the real question. Why now? Why are so many thinkers, healers, and seekers stepping away from society at the very moment when their wisdom feels most needed? Is it burnout? Is it disillusionment? Or is it something deeper? A survival instinct of the soul, a sacred retreat to preserve what little authenticity remains? Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And perhaps that's exactly what's happening. These people are not giving up, they're becoming, even if it means walking away from a world that doesn't understand them. So stay with me until the very end, because what I'm about to share might just change the way you see the world around you. Here are 5 powerful reasons why spiritually awake people are quietly disappearing from society, and why you should pay attention before their silence becomes permanent. And before we dive in, take a quick moment to subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss content like this. Insights designed to make you think deeper and live truer. Let's uncover the first reason together. One of the first and most powerful ways empaths unintentionally trigger envy or jealousy in others is through their natural ability to connect deeply and effortlessly with people. They don't force it, they don't perform. It's simply who they are. When an empath talks to someone, they're not half distracted, waiting for their turn to speak. They're fully present. They listen with their whole being. And that rare kind of attention makes people feel seen, heard, and understood in a way most have never experienced before. Now pause and think about that for a moment. What happens when someone who's been invisible for most of their life suddenly comes across a person who makes them feel fully alive in a conversation? For many, it's beautiful. But for others, it stirs discomfort. Because while the empath is just being kind, supportive, and genuine, that depth of connection can shine a spotlight on what the other person has been missing. And if you've ever noticed someone growing distant, cold, or even oddly critical around you when you're only trying to be kind, this may be the hidden reason why. Curious to know how this plays out in real life? Then make sure you subscribe right now, because in upcoming videos, we're diving even deeper into the secret ways human emotions shape our relationships. Here's where it gets even more fascinating. Empaths don't just connect, they attract. Strangers open up to them without hesitation. Friends feel safe. Even in a crowded room, empaths somehow become a quiet center of gravity. that ability to draw people in, without effort, can create feelings of inadequacy in others, especially for those who feel they have to fight tooth and nail just to be noticed. Watching an empath be loved, trusted, and admired simply for existing can trigger a dangerous thought in others. Why not me? And the empath? They usually don't even realize this dynamic is happening. They don't see themselves as extraordinary. If anything, they often feel different or misunderstood. But to those who measure worth by recognition and validation, that effortless magnetism can feel threatening. The truth is, people often envy what they wish they had, but don't yet know how to build within themselves. Emotional presence, authenticity, depth, qualities that take inner work. And instead of facing that hard truth, it's much easier to resent the person who embodies it so naturally. That's why empaths, without trying, often become targets of subtle envy. If you're still with me, I know this resonates, and that tells me you're someone who values these deeper insights most people overlook. So go ahead and subscribe now, because in the next part we'll uncover another hidden reason empaths trigger jealousy: their calm inner strength and emotional independence. You won't want to miss it. See, while many people constantly seek approval, validation, or reassurance to feel worthy, empaths often carry a quiet confidence that doesn't need an audience. They're not perfect, but they have an inner world so grounded, it keeps them secure no matter what's happening around them. That kind of emotional independence can be unsettling to those who don't have it yet. Empaths don't follow the crowd. They're guided by intuition, not trends. They'd rather be authentic than impressive. And for people who build their identity around pleasing others, being around someone who lives freely can be almost unbearable. Questions rise. Why can't I do that? Why do I always care so much what people think? But instead of facing those questions, it's often easier to turn the discomfort into judgment or envy. And here's a twist. People sometimes mistake an empath's quietness for weakness. But in reality, that stillness is strength. Empaths don't need to prove themselves, dominate a room, or wear masks to be liked. That freedom is powerful. And when someone who relies on external markers, money, beauty, popularity, meets an empath who shines without any of that, that contrast is like a mirror. It reflects back what they're missing, and that reflection can sting. Sometimes it shows up as a passive-aggressive comment. Other times, as subtle distance. The empath feels it instantly, but doesn't understand why. And this is the heartbreaking part. They often blame themselves. But the truth? It's rarely about them at all. It's about what they represent. Freedom, wholeness, authenticity. And if you've ever felt this shift in your own life, here's your reminder. Don't dim your light to make others comfortable. Instead, stay with me, stay subscribed. Because we're about to break down even more hidden triggers empaths set off in others. Triggers that reveal more about those people's wounds than about the empath's worth. They don't always realize it, but empaths tend to shine a quiet light on the hidden emotions of the people around them. Just by being present, they act like a mirror, reflecting what others are feeling, sometimes even before those people realize it themselves. Imagine how unsettling that can be for someone who's spent years pushing their emotions down, denying them, or locking them away. An empath notices the sadness behind a smile, the frustration behind polite words, the heaviness behind "I'm fine." And here's the thing. It's not that they're trying to expose anyone. They simply feel what others are feeling. But when someone isn't ready to face those emotions, that kind of reflection can feel invasive, even if the empath never says a word. Think about how most of us move through the world. We wear masks to get through the day. We smile when we're hurting. We project confidence when deep down we're insecure. We pretend we're okay even when we're breaking inside. And usually those masks go unchallenged until an empath walks into the room. They don't call it out, they don't confront, but their quiet presence picks up on the cracks. And suddenly, someone feels seen in a way they weren't prepared for. That kind of visibility can be terrifying. It can make people feel exposed, vulnerable, even judged, though the empath never meant for that to happen. And here's where it gets really interesting. That discomfort often turns into resentment or even envy. Not envy of the empath's possessions or lifestyle, but of their emotional clarity, their sensitivity, their ability to live with a depth others can't quite reach. It's like being in the dark and suddenly having a light shined your way. The light isn't meant to hurt you. It simply reveals what was already there. But if you're not ready to look, that light feels blinding. And that's when envy begins to stir. Empaths often pick up on this shift instantly. They notice when someone starts pulling back, throwing out sarcastic comments, or building walls of defensiveness. And being sensitive, they wonder, did I do something wrong? Did I say too much? The truth is, most of the time, their very presence is what triggered the reaction. By reflecting someone's emotional truth, they unintentionally invite them to look inward. And not everyone is ready for that kind of honesty. In a world that teaches people to toughen up, to disconnect, to hide pain behind a brave face, empaths can feel out of place. But more than that, they can feel like a silent challenge to the way others are living. And even without words, that challenge is sometimes enough to stir jealousy in the people around them. And if this is resonating with you, if you're nodding along thinking, yes, I've felt this before, then take a moment right now to subscribe. Because this space is about shining light on the emotional truths most people never talk about. Here, sensitivity is strength. Here, depth is valued. By subscribing, you're not just supporting the channel. You're joining a community that sees what others often overlook. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button, and let's keep uncovering these hidden dynamics together. Because the more we understand them, the more powerfully we can navigate the world without dimming our light. There's something else empaths carry that often goes unnoticed, but can quietly stir envy in others. Their strong moral compass and unwavering sense of integrity. Empaths don't just talk about values, they live them. They feel what's right deep in their core. And even when it would be easier, more convenient, or more socially acceptable to bend, they usually can't bring themselves to go against their truth. And that kind of consistency, it can make people uncomfortable. Not because the empath is judging them, but because it shines a light on where others may be compromising their own values. Think about it. In today's world, a lot of people wear different masks depending on who they're with. They might laugh at jokes they don't actually find funny, agree with opinions they don't believe in, or go along with behaviors that don't sit right with them. All just keep the peace. But then an empath walks into the room, someone who is just real, and suddenly, that quiet authenticity becomes a mirror. Part of the person may admire it. Another part may feel exposed by it. And that tension often stirs the inner voice that whispers, why can't I be that honest with myself? What would happen if I stopped pretending? That's where envy creeps in. It isn't always about wishing to be the empath. It's about wishing to feel as whole as they seem. Empaths don't need to perform. They don't twist themselves to fit expectations. They carry a quiet courage. The courage to say no when something doesn't feel right, to walk away from what isn't aligned, to stand alone rather than betray themselves. That kind of inner strength can feel intimidating to those still searching for it within themselves. And here's the thing, empaths don't flaunt it. They don't announce, look at me, I'm living with integrity. They just live it. Their choices, their boundaries, their ability to stay rooted in who they are, it comes from a deep place of feeling and self-respect. And people sense the difference. There's a depth in an empath's decisions that can't be faked. Now, imagine standing next to that if you're someone who's used to performing goodness for applause or hiding behind charm to cover moral gaps. Without the empath saying a word, it feels like a mirror that reveals too much. And that's when judgment or resentment begins to bubble up. Of course, the empath rarely knows this is happening. They weren't trying to trigger anyone. They were just choosing honesty over popularity, peace over drama, boundaries over people-pleasing. But for those still stuck in the need to impress or conform, that quiet strength can look like arrogance, coldness, or superiority, even though none of that is present. The truth? It's just integrity. And integrity, when lived consistently, is one of the most quietly powerful and most threatening qualities a person can carry. And if you're still with me, nodding along because this is hitting close to home, take a second right now to subscribe. This channel is all about exploring these hidden emotional dynamics, the ones most people feel, but can't quite put into words. By subscribing, you're not just supporting the channel, You're stepping into a community where authenticity and sensitivity are celebrated, not shamed. Go ahead, hit that button, and let's keep uncovering these truths together. Another way empaths unintentionally spark envy is through their ability to stay calm when everything around them feels like it's falling apart. Where most people get frustrated, lash out, or lose themselves in panic, empaths often respond with quiet steadiness. Their presence has a grounding effect, almost like a soft anchor in the middle of a storm. But instead of being appreciated, this calm can sometimes trigger irritation or jealousy in others. People who struggle with emotional regulation may look at an empath's composure and feel exposed, as if their own lack of control is being highlighted. They might think, "Why can't I handle things like that?" Deep down, they admire it, but on the surface, it can come out as criticism or dismissal. Some even mistake an empath's inner balance for coldness or detachment, not realizing that empaths feel everything deeply. They've just learned how to manage it in healthier ways. This contrast becomes even sharper in group dynamics. Without trying, empaths often draw others toward them in tense situations, simply because people trust their energy. That quiet influence can stir resentment in those who wish they had the same stability or the same magnetic pull. It's not that the empath is trying to lead. It's that their calmness becomes the unspoken guide. In reality, what's happening is that the empath's emotional maturity acts like a mirror. It reflects back to others the self-control, resilience, or peace they haven't yet mastered. For some, that mirror is inspiring. For others, it's uncomfortable. And instead of seeing it as a reminder to grow, they project envy or defensiveness onto the empath. But here's the irony. The very trait that stirs jealousy is also what makes empaths so valuable. Their calm doesn't come from being aloof. It comes from inner work, from choosing peace over chaos. And while not everyone understands it, that steadiness is one of the greatest gifts empaths bring into any space they enter. Being an empath is a rare and beautiful gift, but it comes with its challenges. The deep connection quiets strength, authenticity, integrity, and calm presence that empaths carry can sometimes stir envy or even discomfort in others. Not because the empath has done anything wrong, but because they serve as a mirror, reflecting the very qualities people often wish they could embody themselves. When others project those feelings, it's important to remember, it's not truly about you. It's about the inner battles they're still working through. Your light simply makes the shadows around them more visible. And that's okay. It means you're living in truth. And sometimes, truth has a way of shaking things up. So if you've ever felt misunderstood or judged for just being yourself, take heart. It's not a weakness. It's part of your strength. The world needs your calmness, your integrity, and your ability to live from the heart. If these insights resonated with you, I'd love for you to subscribe and join this community of people who value depth, kindness, and authentic connection. Together, we'll keep exploring what it really means to grow emotionally and spiritually, and how to navigate these challenges with compassion and resilience. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. There's so much more to uncover, and I'm glad you're here to share the journey. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being part of a space where empathy is not just understood, but celebrated. Until next time, take care and keep shining your light.